Imagine stepping outside into like a heavy tropical windstorm, right?
Huh.
And you watch this fragile, really top-heavy houseplant just completely topple over onto your patio.
Oh, yeah. Usually that's the part where you just get annoyed and maybe sigh loudly.
Exactly. But instead of getting frustrated, you just look at it and think, a structural bug in the system. Time to apply a patch to the environment.
Which is such a unique way to frame a basic gardening problem.
It totally is. So today, we are pulling back the curtain on this single, honestly, seemingly unremarkable diary entry from a personal website. It's dated March 16th, 2026, and it's written by an author named Eng, specifically Kian Meng Eng.
And, if you just skim the text, you see a guy, a pot of dirt, and some gardening shears. It looks very standard.
Right. But the mission of this deep dive is to look at the entire context surrounding this one isolated page. Because when you do actually zoom out, you uncover an absolute masterclass in curiosity, systems thinking, and what it really takes to be a lifelong learner. Okay, let's unpack this.
So the baseline narrative of this specific post is incredibly straightforward. Ang he's evaluating a plant in his collection.
Right, the Crown of Thorns.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah,
a large pot of Crown of Thorns. The scientific name is Euphorbia Milii, for those interested. And he is basically trying to solve a very specific physical problem. The plant just cannot stay upright.
Because of the tropical wind, right? It keeps just knocking it right over.
Yeah. And his diagnosis of the mechanics there is perfectly clinical. He notes that the stems have simply grown, too long, too tall.
And they're just too fragile to withstand the environmental stress.
Exactly. So he decides to prune the stems to propagate the plant, which essentially means creating new plants from the cuttings of the old one.
And reading through his process, it really struck me that he approaches this mundane gardening task almost exactly the way a programmer debugs a piece of software.
Well, what's fascinating here is that analogy holds up surprisingly well when you look at his actual methodology. He blends that empirical science with his daily life.
Right, like think about the sequence. You identify the environmental bug, which is the wind. Then you apply a patch, pruning the fragile stems to make the core plant structurally sound.
And then you have to optimize the new environment.
Yeah, to make sure the new cuttings actually survive. And Eng isolates the variables with this incredibly sharp empirical observation.
Because he notes that the growth of these cuttings is naturally quite slow.
Really slow, yeah.
But crucially, he observed that cuttings without leaves do not propagate well at all unless they are covered with plastic.
Oh, wait, really? Just a simple plastic cover?
Yeah, and we should look at why that specific variable matters. In botany, leaves actually help regulate moisture. So when you take a leafless cutting, it is highly vulnerable to drying out before it can establish a new root system.
So it's a race against time before it just dries up.
Exactly. By covering it in plastic, Eng is artificially engineering a microclimate. He is trapping the humidity.
That makes total sense.
Right, so leafless cutting plus plastic equals retained moisture and potential growth. Leafless cutting minus plastic equals complete failure. He is running a literal controlled scientific experiment right on his patio.
Which is exactly what makes the sudden emotional pivot in the post so jarring. Right after he gives us this cold, hard data on moisture retention, he drops this little sentimental bombshell.
The part about not even liking the plant.
Yes. He openly admits he doesn't even favor this species. It's not a plant he particularly likes having in his collection at all.
It's such a fascinating contradiction, right? He seamlessly blends rigorous empirical observation with deep, messy human sentiment.
Totally messy.
He keeps this large, cumbersome, fragile plant that requires constant structural maintenance purely to revisit useful memories, because his family used to plant these in their front yard when he was young.
And I think that raises such a relatable question for you listening to this right now. Like, look around your house or your desk or your garage.
Oh, I have definitely kept things I don't need.
Right. Why do we maintain things in our lives, these objects that take up physical space, demand our time, drain our energy, that we don't even like that much, purely for the sake of memory?
We all have our version of the Crown of Thorns, I think.
Yeah.
A biological organism or an old piece of furniture, just acting as a living external hard drive for childhood nostalgia.
A living hard drive, wow. But the crazy thing is, he's tending to it so carefully. He doesn't favor the plant, yet he's putting in the meticulous work to figure out the exact moisture requirements for a leafless cutting.
Which really highlights his dedication to the process itself.
That juxtaposition alone makes this a compelling piece of writing. But here's where it gets really interesting, because you have to pull your eyes away from the text of the post and look up at the title.
Right, the actual headline.
The title is, quote, Notes on Gardening, Part 837 on Propagating Crown of Thorns.
Part 837.
I saw that number, and I immediately just stopped reading the post and started digging into the metadata on the sidebar of his site.
The sheer volume it's staggering.
The scale of what this man is documenting is difficult to process. Let's lay out the math so you can really grasp the level of discipline we are talking about here.
Yeah, break down the numbers, because they are wild.
So Ang has been blogging on this site since July 2011, and his output is relentless. In 2023, he published 730 posts.
Which is 2 a day.
Yes. In 2024, he published 732 posts. In 2025, another 730 posts. That is literally 2 posts a day, every single day, for years on end.
It's really hard to overstate how much work that is.
And by mid-March of 2026, which is the exact time of this Crown of Thorns post, he already has 225 posts published. That is in just 2.5 months.
It forces you to completely redefine the medium, honestly. The scale really challenges our modern understanding of what a personal blog is supposed to be.
I honestly have to push back on the concept altogether. Like, is this even a journal anymore? Is it an encyclopedia? Does it cross the line from discipline to maybe obsessive? I mean, most people cannot keep a private food diary for a continuous week without giving up. How does someone log 837 distinct sequential notes purely on gardening while presumably living a normal life?
So you're looking at it through the lens of traditional content creation, where every post has to be this polished, sweeping essay. What Ang is doing is microjournaling.
Microjournaling. Okay, explain that.
These aren't manifestos, right? They are discrete, highly focused observations, and the true value of this system isn't found in his successes. The magic of logging 837 entries is the discipline of documenting the small, mundane failures.
Ah, like the leafless cuttings failing to propagate without the plastic.
Exactly. Think about the last time a small personal project of yours failed. Maybe a recipe burned, or a DIY fix in your house just fell apart.
Oh, my DIY fixes always fall apart.
Right. And what did you do? In a normal person's life, a cutting dies, you throw it in the compost bin, you feel a brief flash of frustration, and you move on. The lesson completely evaporates.
It goes right into the trash can of human memory.
Beautifully put. By forcing himself to log part 837, Ang is capturing that micro-failure before it evaporates. He is externalizing the knowledge.
Though he doesn't have to keep it all in his head.
Right. He is proving that to truly master a domain, you rarely need a massive cinematic breakthrough. You just need a meticulous, searchable record of what did not work yesterday.
Okay, so who has the psychological makeup to actually do this, to document their life with this level of relentless consistency?
You'd have to be wired a very specific way.
Definitely. Because once I clicked over to his About page, the methodical nature of the site suddenly made perfect sense.
Oh, absolutely. The author describes himself as an old software plumber.
Which is such a great phrase.
It really is. He spends his nights tinkering with free Libra and open source software, which is commonly known as floss.
And he is deeply embedded in the ethos of the open web. He actively supports organizations like the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the Free Software Foundation, the Software Freedom Conservancy, the Tor Project, Wikipedia.
He is completely immersed in a world built on shared, decentralized knowledge.
Yeah.
And we should clarify what that open source ethos actually means in practice, because it bridges his digital and analog worlds.
Right, the coding versus the gardening.
Exactly. In closed source software, the code is hidden. If something breaks, the user has absolutely no idea why. But in open source software, the underlying code, the blueprints, they are entirely public.
So anyone can see what went wrong.
Yes. If there is a bug, anyone can study the failure, and anyone can propose a patch. It is a philosophy built on total transparency and communal troubleshooting.
And you see that exact philosophy bleeding directly into his project list. I mean, the sidebar of his site is wild.
It really spans everything.
We mentioned the notes on gardening, but he is simultaneously running serial logs on dozens of completely different disciplines. He's got notes on Haskell programming, and that one's up to part 83.
Which is an incredibly dense topic.
Right. He has notes on Elixir and Erlang, Python, Rust, Go programming. But then, right alongside all that heavy computer science, he has notes on fish keeping, which is up to part 209.
Wow.
He logs betta fish spawn logs. He writes about dieting, photography, meditation. It is an entire universe of seemingly disconnected interests.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
the connection actually becomes clear when you realize what he is fundamentally practicing across all these domains, and that is systems thinking.
Customs thinking. Okay.
Yeah, whether Ang is optimizing a complex piece of Haskell code, which he was actively doing in his March 2026 posts, or whether he is trying to figure out why his mustard seedlings are getting leggy in the sun.
The underlying cognitive machinery is identical.
Exactly. It's the exact same approach.
I love that contrast so much because I know just enough about languages like Rust and Haskell to know they require absolute rigid logic. They are strongly typed, compiler-driven languages.
Oh, absolutely unforgiving.
Yeah. You write the code, you run it, and you get immediate feedback. It compiles or it throws an error in milliseconds. Boom. Done.
But propagating a crown of thorns.
Right. He literally writes that it takes quite some moons just to see slow growth. The feedback loop takes months.
And yet he treats the slow, analog world of his front yard with the exact same data-driven philosophy he applies to a blazing fast software compiler.
Which is just wild to think about.
He is looking at his fish tank, his diet, and his plants as systems with inputs, outputs, and variables. If a piece of software crashes, a developer checks the error logs.
Right.
If his MediaTek router acts up on the Wi-Fi 7 network, which, by the way, he also troubleshot that same month, he analyzes the network traffic.
And if a plant falls over in the tropical wind, he analyzes the structural integrity and the moisture retention.
It's all just data to him.
So what does this all mean for the rest of us? Let's be real for a second. If you are a busy professional, student, or just someone trying to keep your head above water.
Right, real life gets in the way.
Looking at a guy publishing 730 detailed posts a year is inspiring, sure, but it is also incredibly intimidating. How does a normal person apply this kind of extreme documentation to their own chaotic life without instantly burning out from information overload?
That is the pivotal question, and the answer is absolutely not to try and match his volume.
Okay, good, because I was already feeling exhausted.
The goal isn't to walk away from this deep dive and suddenly force yourself to publish 2 blog posts a day. The real, actionable takeaway is adopting his psychological stance, specifically the mindset of an evaluator.
Which ties right back to the text of the Crown of Thorns post. He explicitly wrote that he kept the plant, quote, mostly for evaluation.
That one word unlocks his entire approach to life. Humans naturally attach heavy moral weight to failure.
Oh, definitely.
Right. If a houseplant dies, the immediate internal monologue is usually, I am a bad gardener. If a diet fails, we tell ourselves, I lack willpower.
Yeah, we turn environmental bugs into character flaws.
Oh, that is such a critical distinction. We judge ourselves, whereas a compiler doesn't judge the code.
It just evaluates it.
Precisely. Ang isn't judging the plant for falling over, and he isn't judging himself as a failure for letting it grow too tall. He is simply evaluating the physical conditions.
So taking the emotion out of the failure.
Stripping the ego out of failure is how you avoid burnout. You start treating your life as a series of small, observable experiments without harsh personal judgment. You log what works, you log what doesn't, and you review the data.
And we actually see that review process built structurally into his website, don't we?
We do, yeah. He relies on features like the Now page, a This Week in Review project, a This Month in Review, and even a This Year in Review.
So he is creating forced moments of synthesis.
Those review cycles are the engine keeping the entire system from collapsing into chaos. By actively exploring so many multiple angles simultaneously.
Like one day he's evaluating if eating fish is a more optimal diet, and the next day he's debugging a MediaTek router.
Exactly. He could easily get lost in the weeds of his own data.
Yeah.
But the weekly and monthly reviews act as an anchor. They force him to step back and synthesize all those disparate micro-failures into actual usable wisdom.
And you really don't need a public open source blog to do this. You just need a notebook and maybe 5 minutes on a Sunday evening to ask yourself, like, what was my tropical wind this week? What patch did I try to apply?
Right. Did the leafless cutting survive, or do I need to add plastic next time?
The simple act of writing it down changes your neurological relationship to the problem. It moves the anxiety from inside your head, where it feels so overwhelming and personal, to a piece of paper.
Where it becomes an objective puzzle to be solved.
We have covered quite a journey today. I mean, we started with a single, slightly wobbly houseplant getting battered by the wind, and a guy just trying to keep it upright out of a sense of childhood nostalgia.
And by pulling on that one little thread, we unspooled a massive cross-disciplinary archive.
We found a bridge between the rigid, instantaneous world of software engineering and the slow, patient world of natural botany.
It is a powerful reminder that there are no boring subjects, only unobservant people. Aang's entire lifelong project is a quiet rebellion against letting the details of life slip by unnoticed.
Which brings up a genuinely profound concept I want to leave you with today. Throughout this deep dive, we've talked about Aang's commitment to free and open source software. But what he is actually doing with his website is something much larger than coding.
It's way bigger.
He is essentially open sourcing human memory.
Think about what a public changelog is for a piece of software. It's a document that lists every bug fix, every new feature, and every failure along the way.
And Aang is building a public, highly searchable, meticulously tagged changelog of his own trials, his own errors, and his own curiosities.
Leaving a permanent record behind.
And so the question I want to pose to you as you go about the rest of your day is this. Think about your own life as an archive. If a stranger were to somehow read the spawn logs or the pruning notes of your daily existence 100 years from now,
What distinct patterns of curiosity would they find?
exactly. Are you actively leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for your future self, documenting the small failures so you can actually learn from them? Or are you letting all those little aha moments just blow away in the tropical wind?
Observation is a choice we have to make every single day. The data is always there. It's just waiting to be logged.
So go out there, pay attention to the little things, and evaluate one small micro failure today without judging yourself for it. We'll get you next time.